everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Foundation for Free Enterprise Education Speaker Series. My name is Scott Lee, and today we're pleased to have with us Mr. Jeffrey Klare, Director of Economic Development at Lower Paxton Township in Dauphin County. Jeff is also the CEO of Hire Disability Solutions and Be a Hero, Hire a Hero, LLC. Jeff is a fascinating guy, and in today's edition, we're going to talk about Jeff's story and how it led him to working with the disabled and veteran communities. And then we'll dive into some great tips on how you can look at the challenges in life as opportunities. Before we begin, a little about Jeff. Jeff attended Cornell University and John Jay College of Criminal Justice. He admittedly is obsessed with becoming a professional football player, but his dream ended 43 seconds into his tryout with the New York Giants. It was a defining moment in his life. He says you'll never get a second chance at a first impression. When his sister came down with a life-threatening disease, Jeff leapt into action and, he wanted to pursue answers. And his diligence and passion led him to dedicating his life to finding inclusion and diversity in the workplace for those without a voice. He formerly served as an HR director for a Fortune 500 company and an executive board member of the President's Committee on the Employment of People with Disabilities. He is the founder and CEO of Be a Hero, Hire a Hero, LLC, and Hire Disability Solutions, organizations dedicated to finding employment opportunities for veterans and men and women with disabilities. To date, over 14,000 families nationwide have found life-sustaining jobs through his work. Jeff has lectured on issues regarding diversity and employment to organizations ranging from the Columbia School of Business to Harvard University. He has also appeared on the Weekend Today Show and has been featured in Fortune Magazine, Crain's New York Business, The Daily News, The Bergen Record, and Bloomberg Radio. Jeff, as we said, is currently the Director of Economic Development for Lower Paxton Township in Dauphin County, where he resides with his wife, Dr. Amy Kitching. Jeff, great to have you today. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with the football thing. You lasted 43 seconds. Tell us about that experience and what you learned.
Well, when I started playing football, I was 8 years old, and that was my dream. Every Saturday, I'd watch football with my father every Sunday. And that day I got there, and there was 100 guys that were all bigger, stronger, faster. And after two 40-yard sprints, they said, "Thank you for coming." And that made me think of what I was going to do with the rest of my life.
Wow. I mean, first of all, it's got to be exciting to be on that field, but the realization also that, your passion, is no longer going to come to fruition. That must have been difficult for you.
Well, it was a game changer, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I ended up playing semi-pro football for 5 years. But earning $200 is a lot different than, these days, $20 million.
Yeah, how about that? $200. Woof. Yeah, that's rough. So you told me once that you were told that your dreams will never come true. I'm sure a lot of our viewers hear that as well. First, who said that to you? How did it make you feel? And what did you decide to do about it?
Well, it was my first boss. And, being, a beginner in the workforce, I was a little cocky. I thought I knew everything. And, in retrospect, he was just trying to make me look forward to having some brighter days. But I remember years later, I met him in the Long Island Railroad train station. And I said, "I'm going to make you eat those words. And one day you're going to come work for me." And, I'm sure he's sorry he said that.
Well, did he end up working for you?
We collaborated on some projects together. But it was a great opportunity to prove him wrong.
Awesome. So if you don't mind, let's dive a little bit into how your sister's illness impacted you. What can you tell our viewers about not only her determination, but your determination never to give up?
Well, the day she told me was worse than not making the New York Giants. That's what happens when you find out your best friend in the world. So my journey began with calling the White House every day. Every day I called and asked, what are you doing to fix this? And, you know, I didn't know that I was, getting in people's way, but one day my phone rings and my assistant said to me that there's a person calling demanding to speak to you. And it was somebody from the White House. And they asked me to come down to Washington and help President Clinton and be an advisor on the issues of people with disabilities, which I accepted and spent 4 years trying to carve the way and make a difference.
Wow. So let me ask you, you said you kept calling every day, calling and calling. How long did it take before they returned your phone call?
Oh, almost 2 years.
Wow. And you kept at it.
I would have shown up on their doorstep had they not called.
Yep.
Yeah, determination is something that I'm not afraid of.
That's awesome. I hope our heroes or our listeners really heard that. That's very, very important lesson. What other influences inspired you to start Be a Hero, Hire a Hero?
Well, my father was ex-Navy. So growing up, he always taught me the difference between right and wrong and what a person has to do to be successful and be determined to finish your mission. But 9/11, my office was at 120 William Street, which was right down the street from the World Trade Center. And that day changed my life forever. What I saw, I don't want anybody to ever see again.
Yeah.
So veterans, we were helping people with disabilities, but yet then veterans started to come home and they didn't want to be considered a person with a disability. A Marine is a Marine is a Marine. And we started, my father and I, Be a Hero, Hire a Hero. And it's been an amazing ride.
I'll bet. I mean, especially with 14,000 families whose lives you've profoundly changed. Good for you, and thank you for your mission. It's important. You said to me once when we first initially spoke that one question you always ask people is, tell me what you've done to make the world a better place. And when you asked me that question, I was a little bit taken aback. It can be kind of loaded, but I think our young people sometimes think that they have to do something huge to change the entire world. What do you mean when you ask that question, first of all? And secondly, what answer do you hope to hear?
Well, first, I don't hope to hear anything other than the person responding in a positive way. And the world is made up by millions and millions of individuals. It's not just one lump sum, it's the sum of all of its parts. And when I talk to young people, you can knock at your neighbor's door and ask, is there anything I can do for you today? We live here in the Northeast, and you have to think when we get, 6, 7, 8 inches of snow, a 90-year-old person is imprisoned in their home. And if they're using oxygen or insulin, or maybe they don't even have a quart of milk, but they can't go to the corner grocery store like, a 15-year-old can. And so just knocking at the door, asking, is there anything I can do to make your day a little bit better, makes the world a better place.
I love that answer. I mean, that it's I liken it to a baseball analogy. I realize it's not football, but I think this world needs a lot more singles hitters rather than home run hitters. And what that means is you do things for other people consistently, the small things over time, and you don't even know that small thing may have just changed someone's life. We're not privy to that information, but you just keep doing those kinds of things. Right on, Jeff. I mean, that is perfect. That is the perfect answer. And it's actually the kind of perfect segue into the next question. So, in your dealing with, people with disabilities or veterans or things like that, there's so much that we take for granted. But when you talk about a young person developing their career and things, what are a few skills or behaviors that you think every person should develop, and why?
Well, there's a couple. And the first one and the biggest skill that no one ever teaches is how to listen. I think it's a forgotten art. People like to talk their way through things. Social media has eliminated all kinds of interactions with other human beings. But listening is an art form. I went back to school to get my certification in suicide prevention because what I realized is sometimes people just need to be heard. From that, you could put together a lot of assumptions, but sometimes when people speak, nobody listens. And that creates more pain. So, listening, and then today, a funny story is yesterday my wife was away and I called a food delivery company. And the person delivered the food to the wrong address. And when I called to see where it was, he said, well, it's, 20 doors down. And I said, well, are you going to go get it? He said, no, you go get it. Well, I know how this game works. The reality of it is a little bit of good customer service would have gone a long way. We need to start to appreciate other human beings. And I think that's a forgotten part of our society these days. So when you add respect and listening, you're a much better person.
I love that. It's funny, a little quick aside, but anytime I go to the grocery store or something like that, they have the self-checkout kiosks and stuff like that. I never go to them. I always go to a human being and I ask how their day is and stuff like that. And they're almost surprised that, I ask a simple question or I'm willing to wait in a line just to talk to another person. So maybe that we should kind of like use that, what you just said, Jeff, as kind of a starting point for us to re-engage with society. Put down the electronics, put down the phone, look someone in the eye, when you're speaking with them, and actively listen. You're right, because I think many times people are just, they're having two monologues as opposed to a true dialogue, and they're not listening, but they're waiting to get their next point across. Do you find that to be true?
Our brains are they're on overload these days. So, young people go to school, there's a tremendous amount of knowledge that is put on their plates. And then their home life, there's another amount of tremendous stuff that put on their plates and having to interact, and it's a lot. In the old days when I was a kid, all you had to worry about was hitting a home run or throwing a football. But today it's so much more involved. And so, I think young people have a hard road that they're facing right now. And just interaction with other people, it's just putting a smile on someone's face. That's what my goal is at the end of each day.
Awesome. So you're clearly accomplished, right? And recognized for the great work that you do. And you've always lived by this ideal, service before self. And I know a lot of us have heard that term. Can you tell our viewers what brings you the most satisfaction in your life and how a person can eventually achieve that level of life and career satisfaction utilizing that service before self thing? And I saw you put a medal up there, so if you want to talk about that, go right ahead. This can go anywhere we want,
Well, when my wife and I were living in Georgia, I was selected as the Jefferson Award winner for the state of Georgia. And that put me into a national competition, so to speak. And we got to Washington, D.C. for the award ceremony. And there goes my video on the screen. And I received the Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis Award for Community Leadership nationally.
Wow.
And it's not the accolades that make a difference to me. What makes a difference is one person at a time. And that's why I accepted this position in Lower Paxton Township, is because we want to make a difference. And I can affect many more lives here working in county government. And it's just to see children being happy. I was able to secure a grant to bring in a portable ice skating rink for this Christmas holiday season. And it'll be great to see kids interact with other kids again. So making a difference to me is, at the end of the day, makes me put my head on the pillow and go to sleep. So there's so many opportunities to make a difference. You just have to want to make a difference. Our parents didn't teach us to be mediocre. They want us to be great. And you have to take it. It's not just your head, it's your heart. And if your heart is in everything, you'll succeed.
Excellent advice. So, Jeff, along that line, kids hear all the time how they should follow their dreams, pursue their passion, almost to the point of those kinds of statements becoming cliche or trite. If you could leave our viewers with some practical first steps, or maybe patterns that they can establish not only for their careers but their lives, what would those steps be? How do you get started in serving other people and talking about what you just talked about? How do you start? I think many of us don't know where to begin, or we think it's all too overwhelming. Give us some tips on how not only you got started, but how a young person can get started in this life of service.
Well, dreams have to connect with reality. Otherwise, they're just a dream. And so my thoughts have always been to look where there's a weakness, to look at where there's a hole, and how do I correct that weakness, or how do I fill the hole? And if you're able to do that and create a vision, have a second plan, a backup plan, so to speak. So when I was on the field with 100 other people at Giant Stadium in 43 seconds, I had to have a backup plan. And I don't look backwards and complain. I'm a pretty happy person. And anytime anybody ever asks me in the morning, how are you doing? I'm doing great. Because there's a lot of other people that aren't doing so great. So look at where you can make your best contribution and give it a shot. What's the worst thing a person can say? No. You go on to the next one. And you can't just accept the fact that you can't make it happen, because you can't. You just got to persevere and work through whatever hurdles and barriers are in front of you. Don't accept the word no.
All right, there it is. So let's dive into that a little bit more before we wrap up here. I think a lot of times when we hear no in life, that's when it ends. How do you push through hearing that no? And I'm talking about for our viewers right now who may be getting ready to enter, post-secondary education, college, when they get that rejection letter from their dream school, when they go into the workforce and they throw out 5 or 6 resumes for companies that they want to, join or something like that, and they get those rejection letters. How do you push through it, man? How do you avoid just crawling in a hole and becoming depressed and stuff like that? How do you get yourself out of that?
There's always going to be 5 other schools. There's always going to be 5 other companies that you could send your resume to. But you have to look first at the bigger picture. because you can always try to look through a hole, and if you can't fit through the hole, life is over. Well, that's not the way it's supposed to work. Make the hole as big as you can possibly make it, and then you could dive right into it. So it's just a matter of having, like I said, a backup plan, second choices. I can call up the king of England and ask, you want to have lunch with me? The chances are he's going to say no. But reality of it is, there's a lot of other people that I would rather have lunch with. And so have a backup plan. Make it easy for yourself, and don't push yourself against the wall, because you can always grow in a different direction.
Excellent. And maybe some of those people that you want to have lunch with are right next to you.
Indeed. We don't know what we don't know. And so, there's so many people that I have found in my life to be very interesting that I wish I would have taken the time to know earlier. But
yeah. Interesting. Okay, so let's conclude. Let's wrap up here, Jeff. So we're talking about never giving up. We're talking about persistence, calling the White House every day. Never saying no, or never accepting no sometimes. It is this service before self issue where you are giving a little bit of yourself. You don't even know what the impact is you're going to have, but you continue to do these things consistently throughout your lifetime. What else? Final thoughts. If you could impart to our listeners one or two things, roadmaps for their life, for a successful life. Everybody talks about being happy. I get that. People pursue happiness and don't find it, but what are your roadmaps for pursuing a life of a great satisfaction and peace above happiness?
Well, two. One is educate yourself. Your brain needs to be challenged every minute of the day. Learn new things. Don't accept just what's on a piece of paper. Research it. Understand it. But the bottom line in this world is we have to learn to respect other people. Because if we expect to be respected, what you give is what you get. And at the end of the day, lots happen because of how you treat other people. And it's really that simple.
I think that's the perfect way to end this segment. Jeff, I cannot thank you enough for, first of all, your time, but also for, your profound, work on this earth. I mean, helping other people when they need it is one thing, but helping other people when you don't know if they need it or not, good words to live by. So thank you so much for sharing your story. This was great. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to reach out to Jeff at any time, his contact information will be at the end of this video. But once again, Jeff, thank you so much for everything. We appreciate you joining us for the speaker series.
Thank you to your organization for all you do.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, sir.